There are moments in history when nature itself seems to signal something extraordinary is about to enter the world. On the night of July 9th, 1856, in the remote village of Smiljan, Croatia, one such moment arrived with violent intensity. A thunderstorm of unprecedented ferocity descended upon the countryside, lightning splitting the sky with such frequency that night became day, thunder shaking stone houses to their foundations, electrical discharges crackling through the air in brilliant purple coronas. In a small house, a woman named Djuka Tesla labored to bring her fourth child into this electrically charged world. The midwife, terrified by the storm's intensity, declared it an evil omen. "This child will be a child of darkness," she proclaimed, as another lightning bolt illuminated the room. Djuka Tesla, exhausted but defiant, responded with words that would prove prophetic. "No, he will be a child of light." Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if these history tales fascinate you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The child born that stormy night was Nikola Tesla, and his mother's prediction would prove more accurate than she could possibly have imagined. But the path from that lightning-illuminated birth to becoming the man who would revolutionize civilization itself would be marked by visions, illness, tragedy, and the kind of genius that appears perhaps once in a century. Consider for a moment what it meant to be born in Smiljan in 1856. This was a world barely touched by industrialization, a rural community where most people lived much as their ancestors had for centuries. No electric lights existed. Homes were illuminated by candles and oil lamps. No telephones connected distant communities. No electric motors drove machinery. The word electricity meant little to most people beyond occasional encounters with lightning or the strange spark that appeared when you rubbed certain materials together in winter darkness. Yet this remote village sat beneath some of the most spectacular electrical displays in Europe. The region's geography created conditions for extraordinary thunderstorms. Warm air from the Adriatic Sea collided with cold mountain air, generating atmospheric instability that manifested as violent electrical weather. Lightning storms would rage for hours, sometimes days, millions of volts discharging between clouds and earth, creating displays of raw natural power that most people experienced only with fear. Young Nikola Tesla experienced these storms differently. While other children cowered indoors, he stood mesmerized, watching lightning branch across the sky, studying the patterns of discharge, observing how electricity sought the path of least resistance to ground. He noticed that metallic objects attracted strikes, that tall structures drew lightning preferentially, that certain weather conditions preceded particularly intense storms. His mind, even in childhood, sought patterns, principles, underlying order in phenomena others simply feared. His father, Nikola Tesla, served as an Orthodox priest and writer, a man of learning in a community where literacy remained uncommon. His mother, Djuka, possessed what Nikola would later describe as remarkable inventive ability, despite being unable to read or write. She designed and built labor-saving devices for their household, improved looms, kitchen tools, mechanical aids that demonstrated intuitive understanding of mechanical advantage and efficiency. Tesla would later credit his inventive capacity to his mother's influence, that ability to visualize solutions and construct them with whatever materials were available. But young Nikola's childhood was dominated by the shadow of his older brother, Dane. By all accounts, Dane Tesla was extraordinarily gifted, brilliant, charming, physically accomplished. Their father doted on Dane, seeing in him the promise of greatness. Nikola adored his brother, but felt perpetually inadequate by comparison. Then when Nikola was 7 years old, tragedy struck. Dane died under circumstances that remain mysterious throughout Tesla's life. Some accounts suggest he fell from a horse. Others hint at an accident involving stairs. Tesla never discussed the details publicly, but the loss haunted him forever. After Dane's death, Nikola convinced himself he could never match his brother's promise. Depression settled over him. His parents, devastated by Dane's loss, struggled to connect with their surviving son, who seemed increasingly withdrawn into private worlds. But something else began manifesting in young Nikola, something that would terrify him before he learned to control it. Blinding flashes of light began appearing before his eyes. Not metaphorical illumination, literal flashes so intense they obscured his vision of the physical world. Objects he imagined would materialize before him, appearing as solid and real as actual objects. He would reach for something he'd visualized, only to discover his hand pass through empty air. Walking down familiar streets, buildings he'd been thinking about would appear to rise before him, forcing him to touch walls to determine what was real and what existed only in his extraordinary mind. For a child, these experiences were terrifying. Imagine not being able to trust your own perception, unable to distinguish imagination from reality. Tesla learned to cope by testing everything, touching, measuring, verifying physical existence before trusting his senses. But he also began to recognize that what seemed like a curse might be an unprecedented gift. Consider an experiment young Nikola conducted in darkness one winter evening. He was stroking his cat, Macaque, when he noticed sparks appearing in the animal's fur. Each stroke generated tiny flashes of light, crackling sounds, tangible electric shocks. Fascinated, he stroked faster, generating more and brighter sparks. His hand tingled with the accumulated charge. He asked his father what caused this phenomenon. Milutin explained it was static electricity, accumulated through friction, discharged as spark and shock. But that explanation generated more questions than it answered in Nikola's mind. What exactly was electricity? Where did it reside before discharge? Could it be controlled, directed, harnessed? Could this invisible force that appeared in Cat's fur during winter also explain the lightning that split the sky during summer storms? These questions would drive him for decades. But first, he would nearly die. At age 9, Tesla contracted what doctors initially diagnosed as malaria. Then cholera swept through the region, and he succumbed to that as well. For 9 months he lay bedridden, his body ravaged by disease, his weight dropping until he appeared skeletal. Doctors expected him to die. His parents maintained vigil, watching their surviving son waste away. During delirium, Tesla experienced the blinding visions with increased intensity, entire worlds appearing before his fevered mind, machines operating, systems functioning, all in hallucinatory detail. His father, desperate to give his dying son something to live for, made a promise. Milutin had planned for Nikola to follow him into the priesthood, continuing a family tradition. But as Nikola lay dying, his father leaned close and whispered, "Get well, and I will send you to the best engineering school in Europe. You need not become a priest. Study engineering if that's your wish." That promise may have saved Tesla's life. He began recovering slowly, regaining strength week by week. By age 10, he had survived what should have killed him, but he emerged changed. The visions continued, but with a crucial difference. He began learning to control them. Instead of being overwhelmed by mental images, Tesla discovered he could manipulate them consciously. He could imagine a mechanical device, rotate it in 3-dimensional mental space, examine it from every angle, modify its design, test its operation, all without touching pencil to paper, all within the theater of his extraordinary mind. He would imagine machines running for days, weeks, months, then mentally inspect them to determine which components showed where, which designs proved most efficient, which configurations failed and which succeeded. This ability, what Tesla would later call his mental laboratory, would become his primary tool for invention. While other inventors built physical prototypes through trial and error, Tesla perfected designs mentally before constructing them. His first physical builds would operate exactly as designed because he'd already tested them through thousands of hours of mental operation. It was an ability unique in the history of invention, a cognitive capacity that seemed to transcend normal human limitations. At 17, Tesla enrolled at the Austrian Polytechnic in Graz, fulfilling his father's promise. He proved an exceptional but difficult student, brilliant in mathematics and physics, memorizing entire books, solving complex calculations mentally, but contemptuous of routine and dismissive of authority. He would study for days without sleeping, driven by obsessive focus, then crash into exhausted recovery. His professors recognized genius but worried about his stability. In his second year, a professor named Puschel demonstrated a grammar dynamo, a device that could function as either electric motor or generator, depending on application. The machine fascinated students, but Tesla found himself troubled by its design. The commutator, the mechanical switch that reversed current direction to maintain continuous rotation, sparked violently during operation, generating heat, wearing down brushes, wasting energy, creating fire hazard. After class, Tesla approached Professor Puschel with what seemed to him an obvious solution. Could we not eliminate the commutator entirely by using alternating current instead of direct current? Multiple phases offset in timing could create a rotating magnetic field that would pull the rotor around without any mechanical switching. The response devastated him. Professor Puschel didn't simply reject the idea, he ridiculed it publicly before the entire class. Mr. Tesla proposes perpetual motion, which violates fundamental laws of physics. It is impossible, impractical, a waste of time to even consider. Such notions demonstrate why students should master established principles before indulging in fantasy. The humiliation burned into Tesla's consciousness. But rather than abandoning the idea, rejection transformed into obsession. He would prove Puschel wrong. He would demonstrate that alternating current could drive motors without commutators. He would revolutionize electrical machinery itself. For 6 years, the solution eluded him. He completed his education, worked various engineering positions, struggled with periods of nervous exhaustion and recovery. The problem gnawed at him constantly. How could alternating current, which reversed direction dozens of times per second, produce continuous rotation? How could you maintain torque in a specific direction when the driving force kept reversing? Every approach he imagined mentally seemed to fail under careful analysis. Then came February 10th, 1882, a date Tesla would remember for the rest of his life. He was walking through a city park in Budapest at sunset with a friend, Anita Sigeti. Tesla had been reciting passages from Goethe's Faust, a work he'd memorized completely. As the sun descended, casting long shadows, he spoke the lines. The glow retreats, done is the day of toil. It yonder hastes, new fields of life exploring. Ah, that no wing can lift me from the soil, upon its track to follow, follow soaring. In that moment, the complete solution materialized in his mind like lightning illuminating darkness. Multiple alternating currents, offset in phase by specific degrees, would create a rotating magnetic field. A field that spun smoothly through space, even though each individual current simply reversed direction. Place a copper conductor in that rotating field, and electromagnetic induction would pull it around. No mechanical connection needed, no sparking commutator, no wearing brushes. The elegance was breathtaking. The physics was flawless. Tesla stopped walking so abruptly that Sigeti thought he'd been struck by something physical. His eyes unfocused, seeing not the park, but the machine operating in his mental laboratory. He grabbed a stick and began frantically drawing diagrams in the dirt, circles representing magnetic fields, arrows showing current direction, a spinning rotor following the rotating field with nothing touching it. No friction, no sparks. Just electromagnetic forces inducing motion through empty space. Watch me, Tesla said to his bewildered friend. Watch me reverse it. He modified the diagram, showing how reversing the phase sequence would make the field rotate in the opposite direction, instantly reversing the motor's rotation, something impossible with mechanical commutators without dangerous arcing. Sigeti didn't understand what he was witnessing, but he recognized Tesla was experiencing something extraordinary. Tesla spent the next weeks perfecting the design mentally. He calculated the optimal number of phases. 3 provided best balance of efficiency and mechanical simplicity. He determined how coils should be wound, how they should be arranged spatially, how the rotor should be constructed. He tested the design through thousands of hours of mental operation. When he finally felt ready to build a physical prototype, he knew exactly how it would perform. But building the motor required resources he didn't possess. In Budapest, working as a telegraph engineer, he lacked funds, equipment, and connections to develop his invention commercially. He needed to reach a place where electrical innovation received serious investment, where inventors could find backing, where revolutionary concepts could transform into marketable products. Europe offered limited opportunities. Electrical development there remained, dominated by established interests reluctant to embrace radical innovation. But across the Atlantic, in America, electrical pioneers competed aggressively for commercial advantage. In America, Thomas Edison had created an electrical empire serving wealthy urban customers. In America, capital flowed toward promising technologies. In America, even a penniless immigrant inventor might find opportunities. In 1884, at 28 years old, Nikola Tesla made a decision that would change his life and ultimately transform civilization. He would go to America. He would bring his revolutionary polyphase motor to the land of Edison, the land of opportunity, the land where genius supposedly would be rewarded. He gathered his possessions, clothes, notebooks filled with calculations, a letter of introduction from Charles Batchelor, an Edison associate who'd witnessed Tesla's engineering talents, addressed to Thomas Edison himself. The letter read, "My dear Edison, I know 2 great men and you are one of them. The other is this young man." Tesla boarded a steamship bound for New York, carrying everything he owned and dreams of revolutionizing electrical engineering. In his pocket, he had exactly 4 cents. In his mind, he carried designs worth millions. The Atlantic crossing would nearly kill him. What awaited in America would prove both more promising and more brutal than he could imagine. The child of light, born during an electrical storm, was about to discover that genius and vision provide no protection against betrayal. The Atlantic crossing in 1884 was supposed to take 10 days. For Tesla, it became a journey through misery that tested whether he would survive to present his revolutionary inventions to America at all. Violent weather struck the ship repeatedly. Waves towered above the deck, crashing over railings, flooding passenger areas. The vessel pitched and rolled with such intensity that most passengers remained in their bunks, too seasick to move. But seasickness proved the least of the dangers aboard. Dysentery swept through the cramped quarters, where immigrants were packed together in conditions designed more for cargo than humans. The stench of illness filled the air. People died during the crossing, their bodies committed to the ocean in brief, grim ceremonies. Tesla, already weakened from years of nervous exhaustion and irregular eating habits, driven by his obsessive work patterns, fell ill almost immediately. Fever consumed him. His body rejected what little food he could force down. He lay in his bunk experiencing those familiar blinding visions, but now they mixed with delirium, making it impossible to distinguish inspired imagination from fever dream. Then, partway through the voyage, he discovered his luggage had been stolen. Everything he'd brought, except the clothes he wore and the papers he'd kept on his person, gone. The theft felt like an omen, a warning that America might devour him as thoroughly as the thieves had taken his possessions. But the letter remained safe, tucked inside his coat. That letter to Edison represented his only tangible asset besides the designs existing in his mind. He had to survive. He had to reach New York. He had to present his polyphase motor to someone with resources to build it. When the ship finally reached New York Harbor in June 1884, Tesla staggered down the gangway at Ellis Island, looking more like a refugee than a revolutionary inventor. Thin, pale, wearing travel-stained clothes, speaking heavily accented English, possessing 4 cents, literally 4 pennies, to his name. Immigration officials processed him with the same indifferent efficiency they applied to thousands of arrivals weekly. One more European immigrant hoping to find fortune in America. New York itself struck Tesla like a physical blow. The noise, the chaos, the crowds, the filth, after rural Croatia and the organized cities of Europe, New York, seemed like barely controlled pandemonium. Horse-drawn carriages clattered over cobblestones. Vendors shouted. Buildings rose higher than he'd imagined possible. Garbage accumulated in streets. The smell was overwhelming. Horse manure, industrial smoke, unwashed humanity packed together in impossible density. But through this chaos, Tesla navigated toward his destination. He asked directions in broken English, following instructions toward Thomas Edison's headquarters. Edison, at 37 years old, ruled American electrical innovation like an industrial monarch. His Pearl Street station in Manhattan delivered direct current electricity to wealthy customers. His incandescent bulbs illuminated prestigious buildings. His name appeared in newspapers constantly, associated with progress, modernity, the electrical future. Tesla presented himself at Edison's office and delivered bachelor's letter of introduction. Edison, famously dismissive of formal education, suspicious of theory, committed to practical trial and error experimentation, regarded this strange, thin European with barely concealed skepticism. But the letter came from Bachelor, whose judgment Edison trusted. And Edison's operation suffered from chronic technical problems that his staff couldn't solve. Perhaps this foreigner possessed useful skills. Can you fix a direct current generator? Edison asked bluntly. Tesla nodded. Edison described a ship equipped with Edison lighting systems, currently docked with completely failed generators. The ship's owners demanded immediate repair, or they'd switch to gas lighting, a humiliating defeat for Edison's reputation. Could Tesla fix it? Tesla went immediately to examine the generators. Working through the night with minimal tools, applying his understanding of electromagnetic principles, he redesigned key components, rewound coils, corrected design flaws Edison's engineers had missed. By dawn, the generators operated perfectly, better than their original specifications. The ship's captain was astounded. Edison was impressed. Tesla, you're hired, Edison announced. But understand something, we do practical work here. No fancy theories. We try things until something works. Can you handle that? Tesla could handle it because he desperately needed employment. He joined Edison's operation and immediately began working 18 to 20-hour days, solving problems that had stumped Edison's entire engineering staff. Edison conducted innovation through exhaustive trial and error, testing thousands of materials to find a suitable light bulb filament, building prototype after prototype until something functioned adequately. This approach offended Tesla's mathematical sensibilities. Why test thousands of materials when calculation could identify promising candidates? Why build endless prototypes when mental simulation could eliminate flawed designs before construction? But the deeper conflict involved physics itself. Edison's direct current system suffered from fundamental physical limitations that no amount of trial and error could overcome. Voltage dropped proportionally with distance as current flowed through copper wire. Resistance in the wire converted electrical energy into waste heat. At 110 volts, Edison's standard, electricity couldn't travel more than a mile before voltage dropped too low to power lights or motors effectively. This meant Edison needed a generating station every few blocks. Each station required coal, boilers, steam engines, generators, maintenance crews, fuel delivery, enormous capital expense and operating cost. The economics restricted electrical service to dense, wealthy urban centers where enough customers could afford premium prices to justify infrastructure costs. The vast majority of America, rural areas, small towns, even working-class urban neighborhoods, couldn't access Edison's system because the physics and economics made it impossible. Tesla tried explaining to Edison that alternating current could solve these problems. Transformers could step voltage up to thousands or tens of thousands of volts for long-distance transmission, then step it back down for safe local use. High voltage meant lower current for the same power, which meant dramatically less energy wasted as heat in transmission wires. A single generating station could serve an entire region instead of a few city blocks. The economics would make electricity affordable for everyone, not just the wealthy. Edison dismissed these arguments completely. He'd committed his company's future to direct current. Acknowledging alternating current superiority would mean admitting his massive investment in direct current infrastructure was obsolete. Beyond commercial concerns, Edison genuinely believed direct current was safer, and he would later prove willing to use brutal methods to convince the public of alternating current's dangers. For months, Tesla worked with remarkable dedication, improving Edison's generators, solving electrical problems, demonstrating engineering brilliance that made him invaluable to Edison's operations. Edison, recognizing Tesla's extraordinary abilities, made a promise: successfully redesign and improve the direct current generators, and he'd pay $50,000. An enormous sum, roughly equivalent to $1 million in contemporary value. Tesla threw himself into the project with obsessive intensity. He redesigned 24 different types of generators Edison used, improving efficiency by 15 to 25%, reducing maintenance requirements, extending operational lifetime. The improvements represented major technological advancement, saving Edison's company enormous amounts of money in operating costs and giving them competitive advantage over rival electrical firms. When Tesla completed the work and reminded Edison of the promised $50,000, Edison's response became legendary for its cruelty. He laughed, slapped Tesla on the shoulder and said, "Tesla, you don't understand our American humor." He had never intended to pay. The promise was a joke, a motivational tactic to extract maximum effort from a naive immigrant. He offered Tesla a $10 weekly raise instead, from $18 to $28 per week. Consider what this meant. Tesla had worked for months under brutal conditions, sacrificing health and time, producing innovations worth hundreds of thousands of dollars to Edison's company, based on an explicit promise of compensation. And Edison dismissed the debt with mockery, treating Tesla's trust as evidence of foolish gullibility rather than Edison's own dishonesty. The betrayal struck Tesla with devastating force. This wasn't mere financial disappointment. It was profound disillusionment about whether genius and honest effort would be rewarded in America. He'd crossed an ocean, survived illness and theft, worked to exhaustion, produced revolutionary improvements, and received mockery in return. Tesla quit immediately. He walked out of Edison's operation and began searching for other employment, but finding work proved surprisingly difficult. Edison's network dominated American electrical engineering. Companies were reluctant to hire someone who'd left Edison's employ, suspecting Tesla must have been incompetent or difficult. Tesla's heavy accent, his formal European manner, his theoretical approach to problems, all marked him as foreign, strange, not fitting American industrial culture. By 1886, the man whose mind contained designs that would revolutionize civilization found himself digging ditches. Literally, the Western Union Telegraph Company, which had business connections to Edison, hired laborers to bury underground cables throughout New York City. Tesla, desperate for any income, took a job as a ditch digger, earning $2 per day. He spent months doing manual labor, operating a shovel, digging trenches in all weather. His hands blistering and bleeding, his body aching from work he was physically unsuited for. The ultimate humiliation: he was installing cables for Edison's electrical system, the obsolete direct current infrastructure he knew was doomed by physics and economics. He who had designed the alternating current motor that made long-distance transmission practical was now digging holes to bury Edison's limited-range direct current cables. Imagine the psychological torture. Standing in a muddy trench, shovel in hand, while inside your mind complete designs for revolutionary electrical systems operate flawlessly. Knowing you possess knowledge worth millions while earning $2 daily. Understanding that somewhere, given resources and opportunity, you could transform how humanity generates and uses energy. But first, you need to dig this ditch. Yet even this degradation contained seeds of salvation. A foreman named Alfred Brown noticed the strange foreign worker who discussed electromagnetic field theory during lunch breaks. Brown was educated enough to recognize that someone explaining polyphase motor principles while eating a sandwich in a ditch probably didn't belong there. He began conversations with Tesla, learning about his background, his inventions, his vision for alternating current systems. Brown introduced Tesla to Charles Peck, a New York attorney with capital to invest and connections to industrial interests. Peck listened to Tesla explain his polyphase motor, his alternating current generator designs, his vision for long-distance power transmission. Unlike Edison, Peck recognized the commercial potential immediately. If alternating current could transmit power across miles instead of blocks, whoever controlled those patents would dominate electrical distribution as America industrialized and electrified. In March 1887, they established the Tesla Electric Company with a laboratory on Liberty Street in Manhattan. Tesla finally had resources to build what he'd been perfecting mentally for 5 years. He hired skilled machinists, purchased equipment, began constructing physical versions of machines that had existed only in his mind. Working with frantic intensity, driven by years of frustrated ambition, Tesla built the world's first practical polyphase induction motor. The device was elegant in its simplicity, 3 coils arranged around a circular housing, 3 alternating. Currents fed to those coils, each offset by 120 degrees in phase. When current flowed, the result was a magnetic field that rotated smoothly through space, even though each individual current simply reversed direction dozens of times per second. Place a copper disc in the center of that rotating field, and something remarkable happened. The changing magnetic field induced electric currents in the copper through electromagnetic induction. Those induced currents created their own magnetic field. The interaction between the rotating field and the induced field pulled the copper disc around, causing it to spin, following the rotating field with no mechanical connection whatsoever. No commutator sparking, no brushes wearing down, no physical contact between rotating and stationary components. The motor simply spun smoothly and silently, driven by invisible electromagnetic forces. Reverse the phase sequence of the 3 currents, and the motor instantly reversed direction. Change the frequency of the alternating current, and the motor's speed changed proportionally. The simplicity was breathtaking. The implications were revolutionary. No sparking meant motors could operate safely in explosive environments, mines, chemical plants, grain elevators, where direct current motors sparks could trigger catastrophic explosions. No wearing brushes meant virtually no maintenance, no replacement parts, minimal downtime. Simple construction meant manufacturing costs would be far lower than complex direct current motors with their elaborate commutator assemblies. But the motor represented just one application. The same alternating current that powered motors could be transformed to different voltages through transformers, devices that worked on electromagnetic induction principles similar to the motor itself. Step voltage up for long-distance transmission, minimizing current and therefore resistance losses. Step voltage back down for safe local distribution. This was impossible with direct current, which couldn't be transformed efficiently. Alternating current made continent-spanning electrical grids feasible. Direct current could never match that capability. Tesla filed patent after patent in 1887 and 1888. Each document meticulously detailed component designs, operational principles, applications. The patents covered polyphase motors, generators, transformers, distribution systems, everything needed for complete alternating current electrical networks. He was essentially patenting the future of electrical power distribution. In May 1888, Tesla presented his findings to the American Institute of Electrical Engineers in a lecture titled A New System of Alternate Current Motors and Transformers. The presentation demonstrated working motors, explained the underlying physics, described potential applications. Most engineers in attendance struggled to understand the revolutionary nature of what Tesla was revealing. The mathematics of rotating fields, phase relationships, and electromagnetic induction remained unfamiliar to many practitioners focused on direct current systems. But one man in the audience understood immediately. George Westinghouse, industrialist, inventor, competitor to Edison's electrical empire, recognized that Tesla had solved the fundamental problem limiting electrical distribution. Westinghouse had been experimenting with alternating current himself, recognizing its potential for long-distance transmission. But his motors remained inferior to direct current designs. Tesla's polyphase motor changed everything. Within weeks, Westinghouse approached Tesla with an offer. He would pay $1 million in cash, plus royalty payments of $1 per horsepower for every motor manufactured using Tesla's patents. For Tesla, this represented vindication, wealth, and partnership with someone who understood alternating current's potential. For Westinghouse, it represented weapon to finally challenge Edison's dominance. Tesla accepted. And with that agreement, the war of currents moved from technical development to commercial combat. Edison's direct current empire, built over years through aggressive marketing and political connections, now faced existential threat from Tesla's alternating current system backed by Westinghouse's industrial capacity and capital. Edison would not surrender without a fight, and the methods he would employ to defend direct current's reputation would reveal just how far threatened interests will go to prevent revolutionary change. The battle about to unfold would involve electrocuted animals, public executions, propaganda campaigns, and demonstrations designed to terrify the public about alternating current's dangers. Tesla had escaped poverty and humiliation. He'd built his revolutionary motor. He'd found a partner who believed in his vision. Now he would discover that technical superiority provides no immunity against those who profit from maintaining obsolete systems. The betrayal by Edison had been personal and financial. The coming war would threaten everything Tesla hoped to achieve. Thomas Edison understood immediately what Westinghouse's acquisition of Tesla's alternating current patents meant for his electrical empire. Everything Edison had built over the previous decade, the Pearl Street generating station, the distribution networks, the direct current motors and generators, the political relationships with city governments, the exclusive contracts with wealthy customers, all of it faced potential obsolescence if alternating current proved commercially viable. Edison didn't respond by improving his technology. Direct current's physical limitations couldn't be overcome through innovation. The laws of physics determined voltage drop over distance, and no amount of clever engineering could change that fundamental reality. Instead, Edison chose a different strategy. If he couldn't prove direct current superior through technical merit, he would convince the public that alternating current was deadly dangerous. In 1888, Edison launched what would become one of history's most disturbing propaganda campaigns. He hired an electrical engineer named Harold Brown, who shared Edison's conviction that alternating current posed unacceptable safety risks. Together, they designed a series of public demonstrations intended to associate Tesla's technology with death in the public imagination. Brown traveled to cities across America, setting up exhibitions at public venues, town halls, fairgrounds, lecture theaters. He would arrange a stage with electrical equipment prominently labeled as Westinghouse Alternating Current Generator, alongside unfortunate animals purchased from local shelters. Dogs primarily, unwanted strays that would otherwise be destroyed anyway, Brown argued, making their deaths serve scientific education. The demonstrations followed a grim pattern. Brown would bring a dog onto the stage before an audience of journalists, city officials, and curious citizens. He would attach electrodes to the animal. First, he would apply direct current at increasing voltages, demonstrating that even substantial direct current shocks, while painful, didn't immediately kill. The dog would yelp, struggle, but survive. Then Brown would switch to alternating current, at far lower voltages than the direct current exposure. The alternating current would kill the dog instantly, its body convulsing violently as the rapidly reversing current overwhelmed its nervous system, its heart stopping within seconds. The displays were designed to be viscerally disturbing. Audiences watched living animals die horrible deaths, their suffering clearly visible, the association between Westinghouse alternating current and violent death impossible to ignore. Brown delivered lectures accompanying these demonstrations, explaining in pseudo-scientific terms why alternating current's rapid reversal of direction made it far more dangerous than direct current's steady flow. He emphasized that Westinghouse was promoting this deadly technology for installation in homes, schools, in businesses, places where accidents could kill innocent people. Brown even coined a new verb, Westinghoused, meaning to be killed by alternating current. He used it repeatedly in lectures and writings, attempting to embed the association between Westinghouse, Tesla's technology, and death directly into the English language. Imagine the marketing genius of this approach. Every time someone used the word Westinghoused, they would unconsciously reinforce the connection between your competitor and lethal electrocution. But Edison and Brown weren't finished. When New York State began searching for a more humane execution method to replace hanging, which often resulted in slow, agonizing deaths when executed improperly, Edison saw opportunity. He secretly lobbied state officials to adopt electrocution using alternating current, hoping to forever brand Tesla's technology as the executioner's current. Edison provided technical advice for constructing the first electric chair, ensuring it would use Westinghouse generators. When Westinghouse learned about this plan, he was horrified and refused to sell generators for execution purposes. Edison's agents simply purchased Westinghouse equipment through intermediaries, concealing the ultimate application. On August 6, 1890, William Kemmler became the first person executed by electrocution at Auburn Prison in New York. The execution was intended to demonstrate the humane efficiency of electrical death. Instead, it became a nightmare that haunted witnesses for years. The first application of current, 17 seconds at approximately 1,000 volts, failed to kill Kemmler. He remained alive, breathing heavily, groaning. Witnesses became hysterical. Guards scrambled to recharge the equipment. A second current application, lasting over a minute, finally killed him, but not before the smell of burning flesh filled the execution chamber and witnesses fled in horror. Newspapers described the botched execution in graphic detail. Westinghouse, reading accounts, stated bitterly they would have done better using an axe, but Edison achieved his objective. Electrocution was now associated with alternating current. Newspapers referred to the electric chair as being powered by Westinghouse current. The psychological campaign continued reinforcing the message. Alternating current kills. The propaganda reached its grotesque peak at Coney Island in January 1903. A circus elephant named Topsy had killed 3 men over previous years and was scheduled to be destroyed. Edison's associates convinced the circus owners to use electrocution, offering to provide equipment and technical support. On a cold winter day before 1,500 spectators, electrodes were attached to Topsy's feet. 6,600 volts of alternating current flowed through the animal for approximately 10 seconds. Topsy died almost instantly, smoke rising from her feet where the current entered. Edison's film company recorded the execution, producing a short film titled Electrocuting an Elephant that was distributed to theaters and shown as part of exhibition programs. The footage, showing a living elephant suddenly collapsing dead from invisible electrical force, served as powerful propaganda demonstrating alternating current's lethal capability. If electricity could kill an elephant instantly, what chance did a human have against accidental exposure? Yet while Edison frightened audiences with dead animals, Westinghouse and Tesla prepared to illuminate the world. And the showdown would come at an event designed to showcase America's technological achievement to the entire planet. The World's Columbian Exposition, planned for Chicago in 1893, would celebrate the 400th anniversary of Columbus reaching America. The exposition's organizers envisioned something unprecedented: hundreds of buildings spread across 686 acres, all illuminated by electric light, demonstrating American industrial supremacy to visitors from around the globe. 27 million people were expected to attend over 6 months, nearly half of America's entire population at the time. The question was, whose electrical system would power this demonstration of modernity? The exposition organizers solicited bids from electrical companies capable of providing power on such massive scale. Edison bid nearly $2 million using direct current technology, requiring multiple generating stations distributed throughout the fairgrounds due to voltage drop limitations. Westinghouse and Tesla bid less than half that amount, $399,000, using alternating current. With a single central generating station, the bid differential reflected underlying economics. Direct current required expensive distributed generation and thick copper cables to minimize voltage drop over even short distances. Alternating current could use transformers to step voltage high for efficient transmission, then back down for safe utilization, requiring less copper and simpler infrastructure. The physics translated directly into cost advantages. The Exposition Committee awarded the contract to Westinghouse. For Edison, this represented devastating commercial defeat. For Westinghouse, it meant gambling his company's financial future on public demonstration. If alternating current failed spectacularly at the World's Fair, if equipment malfunctioned, if fires started, if anyone was electrocuted, Edison would be vindicated and alternating current would be finished commercially. If it succeeded flawlessly, the war of currents would essentially end. Construction began immediately. Westinghouse installed 12 massive generators in the machinery hall, each capable of producing 1,000 horsepower of electrical energy. These generators produced alternating current at 2,300 volts. Which was transformed up for distribution across the fairgrounds, then back down to power thousands of individual lights and motors, miles of cable-connected buildings throughout the exposition grounds. The entire system was designed according to Tesla's polyphase principles, three-phase alternating current providing power for both lighting and motors. As opening day approached, pressure mounted. Westinghouse engineers worked around the clock testing equipment, verifying connections, ensuring every component operated correctly. Tesla himself spent weeks at the fairground, supervising installations, solving technical problems, checking calculations. The risk was enormous, not just financial but reputational. If this demonstration failed, Tesla's alternating current system might never recover from the setback. On May 1st, 1893, President Grover Cleveland stood before a button connected to the exposition's electrical system. Around him, dignitaries from nations worldwide waited to witness American technological achievement. Cleveland pressed the button. The Chicago World's Fair exploded into light. 200,000 incandescent bulbs illuminated simultaneously across 686 acres. Buildings designed in classical architectural style glowed like luminous palaces against the evening sky. Fountains sparkled under colored electric lights, red, blue, green, amber, creating effects visitors had never imagined possible. Searchlights swept beams across the landscape. Electric signs spelled out messages visible for miles. The crowd's reaction was overwhelming. Many visitors, accustomed to dim gaslight or darkness after sunset, stood weeping at the spectacle. They walked through what journalists immediately named the White City, gleaming buildings illuminated so brilliantly they appeared constructed from light itself rather than stone and plaster. Foreign visitors from Europe, used to their own city's electrical installations, admitted they had never seen anything comparable in scale or brilliance. Over the following 6 months, 27 million people visited the exposition. They experienced technologies that seemed like magic. The Ferris wheel, first of its kind, 264 feet tall, rotated on axles driven by Tesla's alternating current motors, carrying over 2,000 passengers simultaneously in 36 cars. Electric trains transported visitors between exhibition areas. Moving walkways, powered by alternating current, carried people along scenic routes. Illuminated fountains created water displays choreographed with colored lights. Buildings featured electric elevators, electric-powered machinery demonstrations, electric appliances for home use. Tesla himself appeared at the exposition multiple times, conducting demonstrations in the Westinghouse exhibit hall. He stood between large Tesla coils, devices he'd invented that generated extremely high voltage, high-frequency alternating current. When activated, the coils created spectacular electrical displays, lightning-like discharges crackling through air, glowing coronas surrounding metal objects, wireless illumination of fluorescent tubes held in Tesla's hands as electricity flowed harmlessly through his body. These demonstrations seemed like sorcery to audiences unfamiliar with high-frequency currents' properties. Tesla would hold glass tubes containing rarefied gas, and they would glow brilliantly without any visible connection to power sources. Energy transmitted wirelessly through the air, inducing light in the tubes. He would allow massive sparks to strike his body without apparent harm, protected by high frequencies' tendency to flow across skin surfaces rather than through tissues. Witnesses watched, stunned, as this thin, formally dressed man stood calmly amidst electrical discharges that appeared lethal, explaining in his accented English the physics underlying phenomena that looked supernatural. The psychological impact was profound. For months, Edison had been telling America that alternating current was deadly, that Westinghouse and Tesla were promoting dangerous technology, that direct current represented the safe choice. Now, at the most prominent public venue in American history, millions of people witnessed alternating current operating flawlessly. No fires, no electrocutions, no failures. Just reliable, brilliant, abundant electrical power illuminating the future itself. The exposition didn't merely light buildings, it illuminated the path to modernity. Visitors returned to their home communities, describing what they'd seen, demanding electrical service, pressuring local governments and utility companies to bring them this miraculous technology. The White City created expectations that shaped American development for decades. Rural communities that had never had electric service suddenly wanted it. Factory owners who had resisted electrification recognized the competitive advantages. City planners redesigned infrastructure around electric lighting, transportation, and power. When the exposition ended in October 1893, Edison's direct current was effectively defeated as a general power distribution system. Some direct current installations remained, particularly in dense urban centers like Manhattan, where existing infrastructure represented sunk costs. But for new electrical systems, for long-distance power transmission, for industrial applications, alternating current became the standard. Tesla's patents formed the foundation for virtually every power system built subsequently. Yet one massive challenge remained. The Chicago World's Fair had demonstrated that alternating current could power a temporary installation, fed by coal-burning steam generators. But for electrical power to truly transform civilization, it needed to harness nature's forces, particularly the most obvious and abundant source of mechanical energy on the North American continent. 675,000 tons of water fell 167 feet every second at Niagara Falls. For centuries, this tremendous power had generated nothing but mist, rainbows, and tourist revenue. Industrialists knew that if this energy could be captured and converted to electricity, if that electricity could be transmitted to distant cities, if the entire process operated economically and reliably, then electrical power would become the foundation of industrial civilization. Niagara Falls awaited transformation from natural wonder to technological triumph. And the only question was whether alternating current could accomplish what direct current never could: carry massive amounts of power across dozens of miles from generation to consumption. The Chicago World's Fair had illuminated buildings. Niagara would power cities, factories, the future itself. The stage was set for Tesla's greatest vindication, or his most spectacular failure. For thousands of years, Niagara Falls represented nature's untouchable majesty. 6 million cubic feet of water per minute, roughly 150,000 tons every 60 seconds, plunged over limestone cliffs formed by glacial retreat 10,000 years earlier. The falls generated continuous thunder audible for miles. Mist rose hundreds of feet into the air, creating perpetual rainbows on sunny days. Native peoples considered the location sacred, a place where the spirit world touched the physical. But by the late 1800s, industrialists viewed Niagara differently. They saw wasted energy. Every second, water falling 167 feet converted gravitational potential energy into kinetic energy, which then dissipated into sound, turbulence, mist, forms of energy humans couldn't harness for useful work. Simple calculations revealed the magnitude. Water falling at such rates generated millions of horsepower continuously, enough to power entire regions if that energy could be captured and transmitted. Previous attempts to harness Niagara had achieved limited success. Water wheels and turbines had powered local mills and factories since the early 1800s, using water diverted through channels before the falls. But these installations could only serve industries built directly adjacent to the water source. Without efficient long-distance power transmission, Niagara's energy remained essentially local, useful for mills within a few hundred feet, useless for cities miles away. The Cataract Construction Company, formed in 1886 and backed by some of America's wealthiest financiers, J.P. Morgan, John Jacob Astor, the Vanderbilt family, announced an international competition: design a system to harness Niagara Falls power and transmit electricity to Buffalo, New York, 26 miles away. Such transmission distance was impossible with direct current. Voltage drop would render the electricity useless long before reaching Buffalo. But alternating current, with its ability to be transformed to high voltage for efficient transmission, made the project theoretically feasible. The competition attracted proposals from inventors and engineers worldwide. Edison submitted a direct current design requiring multiple relay stations between Niagara and Buffalo, each station converting mechanical energy to electrical energy, stepping the process along incrementally. European firms proposed various alternating current schemes using two-phase systems. But when the International Niagara Commission reviewed submissions in 1893, immediately after the Chicago World's Fair vindicated alternating current, they awarded the contract to Westinghouse and Tesla. The technical challenges were immense. No one had generated electricity on such scale. No one had transmitted high voltage across such distance. No one knew whether transformers could handle the power levels required. No one was certain whether cables could carry the necessary current without overheating, or whether insulators could prevent dangerous voltage leakage. Skeptics predicted catastrophic failures, transformers exploding from overload, transmission lines melting, cascading equipment destruction. But Tesla's calculations indicated everything would work. He had designed the entire system mentally, testing it through thousands of hours of operation in his mental laboratory, identifying and solving problems before physical construction began. His confidence was absolute, not from arrogance, but from methodical analysis of every component and process. Construction of the Edward Dean Adams power plant began in 1894. Engineers excavated enormous underground passages through solid rock beneath Niagara Falls. A tunnel system over 7,000 feet long and 20 feet in diameter was blasted through limestone bedrock, creating pathways where water diverted above the falls could travel underground. Building pressure before plunging down vertical penstocks, massive metal pipes 18 feet in diameter. The design was elegant. Water diverted from the Niagara River above the falls would enter the tunnel system, flow through carefully engineered passages, then drop vertically through the penstocks, striking turbine blades with tremendous force. The turbines, each weighing multiple tons, would spin at precise speeds determined by water flow and blade design. Connected to the turbines, Tesla's alternating current generators would convert rotational mechanical energy into electrical energy through electromagnetic induction. Each generator represented a masterpiece of engineering. Weighing over 200 tons, constructed with extreme precision, wound with thousands of feet of copper wire, each generator could produce 5,000 horsepower of electrical energy continuously. The generators operated on Tesla's polyphase principles, producing 3 separate alternating currents, each offset by 120 degrees in phase, creating the rotating electromagnetic field that made long-distance transmission practical. The turbines and generators occupied enormous underground chambers excavated from solid rock. Engineers designed these spaces to handle not just the equipment, but also the tremendous forces involved. Millions of pounds of water pressure, massive rotating machinery, powerful electromagnetic fields, heat generated by electrical resistance. Ventilation systems kept equipment cool. Drainage systems removed water that leaked past seals. Monitoring instruments tracked operational parameters. Above ground, the powerhouse building rose in Romanesque architectural style. Grand arches, heavy stonework, aesthetic design appropriate for a structure housing humanity's most ambitious power generation project. But the real work occurred underground, where water's potential energy underwent systematic conversion, gravitational energy to kinetic energy to rotational mechanical energy, mechanical energy to electrical energy. The water, falling 167 feet, generated approximately 56 million foot-pounds of energy per second. Turbines converted roughly 90% of that into rotational energy, the remaining 10% lost to turbulence, friction, heat. Tesla's generators converted the rotational energy into alternating electrical current with approximately 95% efficiency, far higher than any competing generator design. The resulting electrical energy emerged at 2,300 volts, ready for transformation. Transformers, devices that worked through electromagnetic induction. Similar principles to the generators themselves, stepped the voltage from 2,300 volts up to 11,000 volts for long-distance transmission. This transformation was crucial. For any given amount of power, higher voltage means lower current. Lower current means less energy wasted as heat when electricity flows through resistance in copper wires. At 11,000 volts, current could travel 26 miles to Buffalo, losing only a small percentage of energy to resistance. Transmission lines, copper cables suspended from wooden poles by glass insulators, marched from Niagara Falls toward Buffalo across farmland and through small communities. Each pole required careful engineering to support cable weight and withstand wind loads. Insulators had to prevent current from leaking to ground through wooden poles. Workers installing the lines faced electrocution risk if they contacted energized cables. The entire project required coordinating thousands of workers, managing hundreds of contractors, solving endless practical problems. At Buffalo, receiving transformers stepped voltage back down from 11,000 volts to levels safe for distribution and use. 220 volts for industrial customers, 110 volts for residential. The transformation happened through electromagnetic induction in transformer coils, following the same physics Tesla had explored in his polyphase motor work years earlier. No moving parts, no wearing components, just alternating current inducing current in adjacent coils through oscillating magnetic fields. On August 26, 1895, workers opened valves allowing Niagara River water to flow through the tunnel system for the first time. Water rushed through passages carved from limestone, accelerating as it approached the vertical penstocks, then plunging downward with devastating force. Turbine blades began rotating. Engineers monitored speeds, vibrations, temperatures. Everything operated as calculations predicted. Tesla's generators, spinning within powerful magnetic fields, began producing alternating current exactly as designed. Voltmeters registered 2,300 volts. Emitters showed current flowing in 3 phases, each offset perfectly by 120 degrees. Transformers stepped voltage up. Current began flowing through transmission lines toward Buffalo, 26 miles distant. The system worked. For the first time in history, massive amounts of electrical power generated from natural forces traveled significant distances for human use. But this was only initial testing with minimal load. The real test would come when Buffalo attempted to actually use the power, when motors started, when lights illuminated, when industrial equipment drew current. On November 16, 1895, workers in Buffalo closed switches connecting the Niagara transmission lines to the city's electrical distribution system. Streetlights flickered on. Motors began spinning. Power flowed from Niagara Falls to Buffalo continuously, reliably, safely. The system worked flawlessly. Within months, Niagara powered Buffalo's entire streetcar system, replacing horse-drawn cars with electric vehicles that moved faster, carried more passengers, and operated without animal waste accumulating in streets. Factories installed electric motors to drive machinery, motors that never tired, required minimal maintenance, and could be controlled precisely. Homes and businesses installed electric lighting, replacing gas lamps that required constant attention and created fire hazards. By 1900, 10 generators operated at Niagara Falls, producing over 200,000 horsepower of electrical energy. Aluminum plants, which required enormous electrical power for smelting aluminum from ore, built facilities near Niagara, taking advantage of abundant cheap electricity. Chemical factories, paper mills, steel plants followed. A new industrial cluster formed around reliable, affordable electrical power. By 1920, the installation had tripled in capacity. Additional powerhouses had been constructed. The Adams power plant became just one of several facilities converting Niagara's energy into electricity. The economic impact was profound. Buffalo transformed from modest city into industrial powerhouse. Western New York State developed manufacturing capacity that employed hundreds of thousands. And the success demonstrated conclusively that hydroelectric power could anchor regional economic development. But for Tesla, Niagara represented merely the beginning, not the culmination, of his vision for electrical power. While others celebrated the achievement of generating and transmitting electricity through wires, Tesla envisioned something far more revolutionary: wireless transmission of power itself. Electricity flowing through the earth as easily as through copper cables, available to anyone anywhere without infrastructure, without meters, without corporations controlling access through monopolistic distribution networks. The idea had obsessed him for years. During his work on polyphase motors, he discovered that electromagnetic fields could induce current in conductors without physical connection. His wireless lighting demonstrations at the Chicago World's Fair had shown energy could be transmitted through air for short distances. But what if you could use the entire Earth as conductor? What if you could pump electrical oscillations through the planet itself, creating standing waves that receivers anywhere could tap for unlimited power? In May 1899, Tesla moved to Colorado Springs to conduct experiments impossible in densely populated New York. He needed space for equipment that would generate millions of volts. He needed isolation from complaints about electromagnetic interference with telegraph systems. He needed access to powerful electrical generation without restrictions on his experimental consumption. He built an enormous laboratory centered around a tower, 52 feet tall, supporting a copper sphere 3 feet in diameter. Inside the building, massive coils wound with thousands of feet of wire surrounded by elaborate equipment for generating and controlling high-voltage, high-frequency alternating current. The installation was essentially a gigantic Tesla coil, capable of generating electrical discharges far more powerful than anything previously created. Tesla's goal was ambitious: determine Earth's electrical resonant frequency, prove that electrical oscillations could propagate through the planet, demonstrate that standing waves of electrical current could be established globally, and show that receivers could extract power from these waves anywhere on Earth. On July 3, 1899, Tesla activated his experimental coil at full power. The results exceeded even his expectations. Lightning bolts 135 feet long, longer than the laboratory building itself, erupted from the copper sphere at the tower's peak. Thunder from the electrical discharges reverberated through surrounding mountains. People in Colorado Springs observed their electric lights, glowing without connection to power lines, electromagnetic. Radiation from Tesla's laboratory induced sufficient current in the wiring to illuminate bulbs over a mile away. Tesla measured Earth's electrical properties using his equipment. He generated pulses of current through the ground and measured how they propagated. He detected resonant frequencies, where electrical oscillations reinforced themselves, bouncing between Earth's surface and the ionosphere, creating standing wave patterns. His instruments registered these planetary electrical resonances, confirming that Earth could function as an enormous electrical conductor. In his notebooks, Tesla wrote with characteristic confidence, "The transmission of power without wires is now an accomplished fact. I have demonstrated that electrical oscillations of proper frequency can be transmitted through the Earth and received anywhere on the planet. The technical difficulties are resolved. Only practical development remains." He envisioned a global system, enormous transmitting stations at key locations, pumping electrical oscillations through the Earth at carefully tuned frequencies. Receivers anywhere, on ships crossing oceans, in remote villages, in factories or homes, would tune to these frequencies and extract power as needed. No transmission lines needed. No electrical grid infrastructure. No metered consumption. Free, abundant electrical energy available to all humanity. But practical implementation required something Tesla lacked: funding on unprecedented scale. His Colorado Springs experiments had been funded by partial proceeds from his alternating current patent royalties and investments from a few wealthy supporters. Building global wireless power transmission would require millions of dollars, years of development, and buy-in from governments or industrial interests. When Tesla returned to New York in 1900, he carried detailed plans for the most ambitious project ever conceived, Wardenclyffe Tower, a wireless power transmission station designed to make electricity freely available across the entire planet. To fund this vision, he needed to approach the wealthiest, most powerful financier in America, the man who controlled more capital than the United States Treasury itself. He approached John Pierpont Morgan. And Morgan, impressed by Tesla's reputation and intrigued by wireless technology's commercial potential, agreed to invest. Tesla believed he'd finally secured the resources to complete his ultimate vision. He didn't yet understand that Morgan's vision and his own pointed in fundamentally incompatible directions, one toward profit through controlled scarcity, the other toward abundance through unrestricted access. The partnership with Morgan would lead to Tesla's greatest betrayal yet, one that would destroy not just a project, but Tesla's financial stability, his reputation, and his faith that revolutionary innovation would ultimately be rewarded. In 1900, J.P. Morgan controlled more wealth than the United States Treasury. His banking empire financed railroads spanning continents, steel mills producing millions of tons annually, electrical companies illuminating cities, including General Electric, which had absorbed Edison's enterprises after direct current's commercial defeat. When Morgan decided to back a project, capital flowed like water, and success seemed inevitable. When Morgan withdrew support, projects collapsed as if their foundations had been dynamited. Tesla approached Morgan with a proposal. He requested $100,000 to build a wireless power transmission station that would revolutionize how humanity accessed energy. He explained his vision. A massive tower equipped with specialized coils would generate powerful electromagnetic oscillations transmitted through Earth itself. Receivers anywhere on the planet, on ships crossing oceans, in factories in remote locations, in homes worldwide, would tap this global electrical field, obtaining power without wires, without transmission infrastructure, without metered consumption. Morgan listened with the calculating attention of a man accustomed to evaluating investment opportunities. But Morgan heard something different than what Tesla was saying. Guglielmo Marconi had recently achieved wireless telegraph transmission across the English Channel, using equipment that infringed on several of Tesla's patents. Wireless communication represented exploitable technology. Messages could be metered, charged per transmission, controlled through infrastructure ownership. Wireless power transmission, by contrast, seemed commercially problematic. If people received power without meters, how would companies charge them? Morgan agreed to fund Tesla's project, but his investment focused on wireless telegraphy, not power transmission. He provided $150,000 in exchange for 51% ownership of all wireless patents Tesla would develop. Tesla, desperate for funding and believing Morgan's capital would enable his ultimate vision, accepted the terms. He didn't fully grasp that Morgan expected commercial returns on investment, not philanthropic transformation of civilization. In 1901, Tesla purchased 200 acres at Shoreham on Long Island and began construction of what he called Wardenclyffe Tower. The structure would rise 187 feet, taller than the Statue of Liberty's torch, topped by a mushroom-shaped copper electrode 55 feet in diameter. The design was distinctive, almost alien in appearance, a massive wooden framework supporting this enormous metal dome that would serve as one plate of a planetary capacitor. Below ground, the construction was even more ambitious. Steel shafts were driven 300 feet into bedrock, where groundwater provided conductive connection to Earth's electrical system. The underground chamber would house Tesla coils and electrical equipment for pumping oscillations through the planet at frequencies carefully tuned to Earth's resonant characteristics. The entire installation would function as an enormous transmitter, not of radio waves through air, but of electrical current through the Earth itself. Construction proceeded throughout 1901 and 1902. The wooden tower framework climbed toward the sky, visible for miles across Long Island. Tesla hired dozens of workers, purchased specialized equipment, supervised every detail obsessively. He was building the physical manifestation of a vision he'd held for years, the ultimate expression of his belief that technology should liberate humanity rather than constrain it through artificial scarcity. But Wardenclyffe consumed money at alarming rates. The tower's construction proved more complex and expensive than initial estimates. Equipment costs exceeded projections. Labor expenses mounted. By late 1901, Tesla had spent Morgan's entire $150,000 investment and needed additional capital to complete the project. Then disaster struck. In December 1901, Marconi transmitted the letter S in Morse code across the Atlantic Ocean from Cornwall, England to Newfoundland, Canada, over 2,000 miles. Newspapers worldwide proclaimed Marconi the inventor of wireless communication. His achievement made him an international celebrity overnight. His company's stock value exploded as investors recognized the commercial potential of wireless telegraphy. Morgan read these news reports with the analytical mind of a financier. Someone had beaten Tesla to wireless transmission. Worse, Marconi's system was designed exclusively for communication, easily metered, controlled, monetized. Messages could be charged per word, per transmission, per distance. The business model was obvious and profitable. When Tesla approached Morgan in 1900, requesting additional funding, explaining that Wardenclyffe would accomplish far more than Marconi's simple telegraphy, Morgan asked the question that destroyed everything. If people receive power wirelessly without meters, how do we charge them? Tesla explained enthusiastically that the system would provide electricity freely to humanity, eliminating poverty and limitation caused by expensive, restricted power access. Free energy would enable economic development in regions too remote for conventional infrastructure. Ships at sea would have unlimited power. Rural areas would access the same electrical conveniences as cities. The technology would serve as great equalizer, providing everyone the tools of modernity, regardless of geography or wealth. Morgan's response, delivered in a letter dated July 14, 1902, was coldly final. I have received your letter and have given it careful consideration. I should not feel disposed at present to make any further advances on the plan. Tesla understood immediately what Morgan's refusal meant. When the richest man in America declined investment in a project, other investors fled in terror. Morgan essentially controlled American financial markets through a web of banking relationships, corporate boards, and informal agreements. His rejection signaled that Wardenclyffe was a bad investment. No other major financier would contradict Morgan's judgment by funding what Morgan had abandoned. Tesla tried desperately to salvage the project. He wrote pleading letters explaining Wardenclyffe's revolutionary potential. He arranged meetings with dozens of potential investors, giving demonstrations, showing calculations, describing applications. He liquidated personal assets, selling property, cashing securities, converting anything of value into funding. He took loans he couldn't repay, mortgaging his future against hope that Wardenclyffe might still be completed. Nothing worked. Morgan's withdrawal had created an insurmountable barrier. By 1905, construction at Wardenclyffe had stopped. Workers were dismissed. Equipment purchases ceased. The magnificent tower stood incomplete, a skeleton of ambition abandoned by capital, a monument to vision betrayed by economics. Meanwhile, Marconi's wireless telegraph company thrived, earning millions using technology based substantially on Tesla's patents. Tesla filed patent infringement lawsuits, but legal battles required money he no longer possessed. The case wouldn't be resolved until 1943, months after Tesla's death, when the United States Supreme Court finally ruled that Marconi had indeed infringed fundamental Tesla patents. A vindication Tesla never lived to witness. The Wardenclyffe betrayal destroyed more than a project. It shattered Tesla's financial stability, his reputation among investors, his faith that revolutionary innovation would ultimately be rewarded. The alternating current patents that had made him a millionaire. Westinghouse had convinced Tesla to tear up the royalty agreement during financial difficulties in the 1890s, costing Tesla what would have been billions in potential earnings. Now Wardenclyffe consumed his remaining fortune. By 1908, Tesla couldn't pay even the modest wages of remaining workers at Wardenclyffe. The property was foreclosed by creditors. In 1917, the tower was dynamited and sold for scrap metal to pay Tesla's mounting debts. a final humiliation, watching explosives reduce his greatest vision to salvage value. The man who had illuminated the Chicago World's Fair, who had harnessed Niagara Falls, who had designed the electrical systems powering industrial civilization, descended into poverty. He moved from hotel to hotel, unable to pay rent, leaving unpaid bills, his possessions seized by creditors. His grand visions were increasingly dismissed as delusions of an eccentric has-been whose glory days had passed. Tesla's tragedy was fundamentally one of incompatible visions. He believed technology should serve humanity's elevation, that abundant energy freely available would transform civilization by eliminating artificial scarcity. Morgan and the financial interests he represented believed technology should maximize profit through controlled distribution and metered consumption. Free energy threatened business models built on scarcity. Wireless power that anyone could access anywhere undermined utility companies' ability to charge for distribution. Infrastructure, technical feasibility became irrelevant when economic systems demanded monetizable returns. Tesla had proven wireless power transmission worked. His Colorado Springs experiments demonstrated that. But proving something possible differs from proving it profitable. Morgan withdrew support not because wireless power was impossible, but because freely available energy threatened the profit structures of electrical utilities, transmission companies, and industrial interests Morgan controlled or influenced. The betrayal was more devastating than Edison's cruelty or Marconi's patent theft. This time, Tesla had been betrayed, not by personal dishonesty, but by the fundamental incompatibility between his vision of technological abundance and economic systems requiring artificial scarcity to generate profit. Wardenclyffe's failure marked the end of Tesla's era of achievement and the beginning of long decline into obscurity, poverty, and isolation. Tesla's final decades unfolded as a tragic descent from celebrated genius to forgotten eccentric. After Wardenclyffe's collapse, he moved from hotel to hotel across New York City, leaving unpaid bills, his possessions seized by creditors, surviving on credit extended by sympathetic hotel managers who remembered when Tesla's name appeared in newspapers. Alongside Edison and Westinghouse, he developed severe, obsessive-compulsive behaviors that grew worse with age and isolation. He counted steps compulsively, requiring everything in multiples of 3. He walked around city blocks 3 times before entering buildings. He used 18 napkins at meals, cleaning each piece of silverware obsessively. He developed irrational terror of pearls and round objects, refusing to speak with women wearing pearl jewelry. He washed his hands until they bled, convinced of contamination, invisible to others. His appearance deteriorated. The well-dressed inventor, who had once moved in society's highest circles, became gaunt, thin, wearing threadbare suits decades out of fashion. His tall frame, 6 feet 2 inches, appeared skeletal. His eyes, once bright with vision and confidence, grew distant, focused on internal worlds others couldn't perceive. Yet he formed one peculiar attachment that brought him comfort. He fed pigeons in New York parks daily, developing relationships with individual birds he recognized and named. One white pigeon in particular became his obsession. He claimed to love this bird as a man loves a woman, spending hours watching it, feeding it specially prepared food, nursing it when injured. When the white pigeon died, Tesla later said something died within him as well, the last emotional connection to living beings severed. He became increasingly reclusive, communicating mainly through letters and occasional interviews granted to journalists curious about the once famous inventor. When reporters visited, they found him living in tiny hotel rooms with only his pigeons for regular company. Yet despite poverty and isolation, his mind remained remarkably sharp. He continued developing concepts decades ahead of contemporary technology. He described vertical takeoff aircraft, what we now call helicopters and VTOL vehicles. He proposed particle beam weapons capable of bringing down aircraft at hundreds of miles distance, concepts that anticipated modern directed energy research. He detailed improvements to wireless energy transmission. He explored robotics principles, describing autonomous machines guided by radio control. He anticipated radar, describing systems using radio waves to detect distant objects. Most dismissed these claims as ravings of an eccentric old man disconnected from reality. But Tesla's delusions often proved prophetic. His vertical takeoff aircraft designs anticipated helicopter development by decades. His particle beam concepts foreshadowed laser and microwave weapons research. His wireless control demonstrations in the 1890s had pioneered robotics. His radio wave detection proposals described radar principles that wouldn't be developed until World War II. On his 75th birthday in 1931, Time magazine featured Tesla on its cover, acknowledging his contributions to electrical engineering. A banquet was held in his honor, attended by scientists and engineers who understood his historical importance. But Tesla remained bitter about the betrayals he'd suffered, about Marconi receiving the Nobel Prize for radio while Tesla's foundational patents were ignored, about dying poor while his inventions powered a civilization that had forgotten him. He maintained relationships with a few people. His nephew Sava Kosanovic visited regularly, providing family connection and assistance with practical matters Tesla increasingly struggled to manage. Writer Kenneth Sweezy befriended him, conducting interviews that preserved Tesla's recollections. Hotel staff at the New Yorker hotel, where Tesla spent his final years, treated him with kindness despite his inability to pay full rent. He granted occasional interviews where he made bold predictions that journalists recorded with skepticism. He claimed wireless power would eventually succeed. He predicted electric vehicles would replace gasoline cars. He described renewable energy transforming civilization. He envisioned global wireless communication networks connecting humanity. Most reporters dismissed these predictions as fantasy from a man whose glory days had passed decades earlier. On January 7th, 1943, a maid at the New Yorker hotel found Tesla's body in room 3327. He was 86 years old. The medical examiner determined he died of coronary thrombosis, heart failure, likely during sleep. He died alone, as he'd lived for decades. He had no money. His funeral expenses were paid by the mayor of New York City out of respect for Tesla's historical contributions. Within hours of Tesla's death, Federal Bureau of Investigation agents seized all his papers, documents, and notebooks from his hotel room and his storage facilities. The government wanted to determine if Tesla's claimed weapons concepts, particularly his death ray particle beam weapon, posed national security concerns or offered military applications. The timing was significant. America was fully engaged in World War II. Desperate for technological advantages, the government brought in John G. Trump, an MIT professor and electrical engineer, to evaluate Tesla's papers. Trump, uncle of future President Donald Trump, spent several days reviewing notebooks, calculations, and designs. His official conclusion: nothing of immediate military value. Tesla's weapon concepts, while interesting theoretically, lacked practical development. His other work, while historically significant, didn't offer immediate wartime applications. Tesla's nephew, Sava Kosanovic, eventually recovered most of the papers after legal negotiations. They were shipped to Belgrade, Yugoslavia, where the Nikola Tesla Museum was established to house his legacy. The museum preserved approximately 300 patents, thousands of notebook pages, photographs, equipment prototypes, and personal effects, the documentary evidence of a life spent pursuing visions others couldn't comprehend. But Tesla's true legacy wasn't stored in museums. It was operating continuously, invisibly, powering every moment of modern civilization. Consider what Tesla gave humanity. Every power plant on Earth generates alternating current using his polyphase principles. Every electric motor in refrigerators, factories, vehicles, appliances operates on his rotating magnetic field design. Every electrical grid transmitting power from generation sources to consumption points uses his transformer technology, stepping voltage up and down. Every radio, every wireless device, every remote control descends from concepts he pioneered. The Tesla coil he invented remains essential in radio technology and wireless communication. His work on high-frequency currents preceded understanding of electromagnetic radiation. His remote-controlled boat demonstrated in 1898 at Madison Square Garden, where audiences thought it was magic or suspected a trained monkey was hidden. Inside, pioneered robotics and wireless control. Decades before those fields formally existed, his bladeless turbine achieved 95% efficiency through boundary layer effects, though it never achieved commercial success due to manufacturing challenges. His understanding of resonance, frequency, and electromagnetic waves laid groundwork for modern physics and electrical engineering. His experiments with X-rays paralleled Röntgen's work, though Tesla didn't publish findings as systematically. Industries worth trillions of dollars trace lineage to Tesla's patents and concepts. Electric power generation, wireless communication, electric motors, industrial automation, radio technology. Entire technological foundations of modern civilization emerged from work Tesla conducted between 1887 and 1905. Yet he died in poverty, largely forgotten, betrayed by economic systems that profited from his genius while denying him compensation or recognition. The irony was profound. The man who gave humanity the electrical age, who envisioned wireless communication decades before technology could implement his visions, who revolutionized civilization itself, died alone in a hotel room with 43 cents in his pocket. But ideas, once introduced into human consciousness, possess immortality, transcending their creators. Tesla's concepts survived because they worked, because they represented superior physics, because civilization needed them. Betrayal couldn't kill what Tesla had unleashed into the world. His alternating current system defeated Edison's direct current, not through superior marketing or political connections, but through physical superiority. Long-distance power transmission worked because Tesla's mathematics were correct, not because investors believed in his vision. The lightning that illuminated Tesla's birth night in 1856 had seemed an omen. His mother's declaration, "He will be a child of light," proved more prophetic than she could have imagined. Tesla became a child of light, not through mysticism, but through understanding electricity's nature, through harnessing invisible forces, through illuminating civilization itself with technologies that continue powering human existence. The betrayals he suffered, Edison's cruelty, Morgan's withdrawal, Marconi's theft, society's indifference, couldn't extinguish the light Tesla created. That light powers every bulb, every motor, every wireless signal, every spark of the electrical age. Tesla died believing he'd failed, unable to see that his revolution had already succeeded beyond measure, reshaping human civilization in ways that would only grow more profound with each passing decade. Stand in any city at night. Buildings glow with electric light piercing darkness that dominated human existence for millennia. Traffic signals coordinate flows of vehicles through intersections. Streetlights illuminate roads, sidewalks, parks. Inside homes, refrigerators hum continuously, preserving food that would spoil within hours without electrical cooling. Televisions display moving images. Computers process billions of calculations per second. Smartphones connect wirelessly to global networks, accessing information, communicating across continents instantaneously. Ride electric trains, moving hundreds of passengers silently through urban tunnels. Enter elevators lifting riders hundreds of feet in seconds. Walk on escalators moving thousands daily between levels. Visit factories where automated machinery produces goods with minimal human intervention. Enter hospitals where electrical equipment monitors patients continuously, powers life support systems, enables surgical procedures impossible without precise electrical control. Every single watt powering this modern civilization flows through systems Tesla designed. The global electrical grid, spanning continents, crossing oceans through undersea cables, connecting billions of devices, operates entirely on alternating current principles Tesla invented in 1882. Power plants generate electricity at frequencies Tesla specified, 60 Hz in the Americas, 50 Hz elsewhere. These aren't arbitrary choices, but frequencies Tesla determined provided optimal balance between efficiency, transformer performance, and motor operation. Transformers step voltage up to hundreds of thousands of volts for long-distance transmission, minimizing current and therefore resistance losses. Then step voltage back down to household levels using electromagnetic induction principles Tesla pioneered. Three-phase power, Tesla's polyphase system, remains the industrial standard worldwide, unchanged in fundamental design from his original patents. Electric motors built on Tesla's rotating magnetic field principle power approximately 45% of all electricity consumed globally. Industrial motors drive manufacturing equipment, mining operations, agricultural machinery. Consumer motors operate kitchen appliances, power tools, heating and cooling systems. Transportation motors propel trains, subways, streetcars. Even gasoline vehicles depend on electric starter motors Tesla's design that replace dangerous hand cranks that could break arms or kill operators when engines backfired. Consider the wireless communication revolution fulfilling Tesla's vision, though through physics slightly different than he imagined. Radio waves transmit information globally. Television broadcasts reach billions simultaneously. Mobile phones connect through cellular networks blanketing the planet. Wi-Fi networks enable wireless internet access in homes, businesses, public spaces. Bluetooth connects devices without cables. GPS satellites provide navigation anywhere on Earth. All wireless technology descends from principles Tesla explored in his Colorado Springs experiments and Wardenclyffe plans. The company bearing Tesla's name, Tesla, Incorporated, produces electric vehicles, finally realizing his century-old vision. Electric motors provide instant torque, quiet operation, zero emissions at point of use. Battery technology enables ranges exceeding 300 miles on single charges. Charging infrastructure expands globally. Major automotive manufacturers commit to electric futures, announcing plans to phase out internal combustion engines. The transition from gasoline to electric propulsion, predicted by Tesla in the early 1900s, accelerates toward inevitability. Driven by environmental concerns and technological advancement, renewable energy systems vindicate Tesla's understanding that clean, sustainable power generation was both possible and necessary. Wind turbines generate electricity using alternating current principles, identical to those Tesla patented. Solar panels produce direct current, converted to alternating current through inverters for grid compatibility. Hydroelectric dams, spiritual descendants of Niagara Falls, provide approximately 16% of global electricity, operating on the same principles Tesla implemented in 1895. Energy storage systems balance intermittent renewable generation. Smart grids optimize distribution. The transition away from fossil fuels toward renewable sources continues the revolution Tesla began. Researchers actively revisit Tesla's wireless power transmission concepts using modern technology. Magnetic resonance coupling enables charging devices without physical connection. Wireless charging pads for smartphones, electric toothbrushes, medical implants. Companies experiment with longer-range wireless power for electric vehicles, consumer electronics, industrial equipment. Proposals for space-based solar power collection with microwave transmission to Earth echo Tesla's global wireless vision. While true planetary-scale wireless power remains elusive, each advance toward untethered energy distribution honors Tesla's foresight. The Internet of Things, billions of connected devices communicating wirelessly, sensors monitoring infrastructure, automated systems coordinating operations, realizes Tesla's dream of global interconnection. Smart homes respond to voice commands, adjusting temperature, lighting, security systems. Industrial sensors optimize manufacturing processes in real time. Agricultural monitors track soil conditions, automate irrigation. Transportation systems coordinate traffic flows. Medical devices transmit patient data continuously to healthcare providers. This planetary nervous system of wireless coordination descends directly from principles Tesla explored when wireless communication seemed like pure fantasy. Tesla's influence extends beyond direct technological applications. His approach to innovation, visualizing complete systems mentally, calculating solutions theoretically before building physical prototypes, thinking decades ahead of contemporary technology, inspired generations of engineers and scientists. His willingness to pursue revolutionary visions despite ridicule and opposition provides template for disruptive innovation. His tragedy, dying poor while his inventions enriched others, warns about protecting intellectual property and illuminates tensions between innovation and profit. Modern physics recognizes Tesla's intuitive understanding of phenomena that wouldn't be formally explained until quantum mechanics and relativity emerged decades after his major work. His experiments with high-frequency currents preceded full understanding of electromagnetic radiation. His proposals about energy extraction from environmental sources anticipated zero-point energy concepts. His theories about wireless energy transmission through Earth anticipated research into extremely low-frequency waves and planetary resonance that continues today. The vindication continues accelerating. In 2003, the International Electrotechnical Commission adopted Tesla as the SI unit of magnetic flux density, officially embedding his name in scientific language used globally. Every physics student learns this unit, though many don't know the man behind it. Museums worldwide display Tesla's equipment, documents, inventions. Popular culture rediscovers him through documentaries, films, books, online discussions. Educational curricula increasingly include his contributions. Public awareness grows that the electrical age humanity inhabits is fundamentally Tesla's creation. Yet fundamental questions Tesla raised remain unanswered. Is wireless power transmission at planetary scale physically possible with modern technology? Can environmental energy, from Earth's electromagnetic field, from atmospheric electricity, from quantum vacuum fluctuations, be harvested efficiently? Can humanity develop technologies providing abundant energy without environmental destruction or economic restriction? Tesla believed these questions had affirmative answers. Contemporary research continues exploring possibilities he identified over a century ago, using equipment he could only dream about. The broader significance transcends technical achievements. Tesla's story reveals persistent tension between innovation and profit, between visionaries who imagine transformative technologies and economic systems demanding monetizable returns. Morgan withdrew support from Wardenclyffe, not because wireless power was impossible, Tesla had demonstrated its feasibility, but because freely available energy threatened profit models depending on controlled, metered distribution. This fundamental conflict between abundance and scarcity, between technologies that liberate and economic systems that restrict, remains unresolved in contemporary society. Tesla envisioned electrical energy as a natural resource that should flow freely like air or sunlight, available to all without artificial barriers. He believed technology should serve humanity's elevation, not corporate enrichment. His alternating current system succeeded because it provided superior functionality that couldn't be suppressed. But wireless power failed because it threatened existing power structures. The lesson persists. Revolutionary technologies face resistance not just from technical limitations, but from entrenched interests whose profits depend on maintaining current systems. Modern civilization vindicates Tesla's technical genius while largely ignoring his philosophical vision. We use his inventions to build profit-maximizing systems he opposed. Electric utilities charge for power distribution using his freely shared patents. Wireless communication companies monetize connectivity through subscription models. Electric vehicle manufacturers profit from his motor designs. The man who wanted to give humanity free, abundant energy became the foundation for industries built on scarcity and control. Yet perhaps final vindication still approaches. As renewable energy costs plummet, as distributed generation becomes practical, as energy storage improves, as wireless power transmission advances, the possibility of abundant, inexpensive, widely available electricity, Tesla's original vision, grows more feasible. Solar panels on millions of rooftops generate power without utility intermediaries. Battery systems provide backup without grid dependence. Peer-to-peer energy sharing enables communities to pool resources. The electrical future might yet resemble what Tesla imagined, power available to all, eliminating artificial scarcity, liberating human potential. Tesla died believing he'd failed. He saw Wardenclyffe demolished, his wireless power vision rejected, his fortune lost, his contributions attributed to others like Marconi. He couldn't know that 70 years after his death, every moment of modern life would depend on his inventions. He couldn't know his name would grace the most valuable automotive company on Earth. He couldn't know that researchers worldwide would still pursue his vision of wireless power, of abundant energy, of technology serving humanity rather than profit. The lightning that illuminated Tesla's birthnight in 1856 seemed an omen his midwife interpreted as darkness. His mother's correction proved prophetic. He would indeed become a child of light, not through mysticism or supernatural gift, but through understanding electricity's deepest nature, through harnessing invisible forces that others feared or dismissed, through illuminating civilization itself with technologies that continue expanding human capability. The betrayals he suffered, Edison's calculated cruelty, Morgan's cold withdrawal, Marconi's opportunistic theft, society's systematic indifference, couldn't extinguish the light Tesla created. That light powers every bulb illuminating human spaces after dark, every motor spinning in factories, homes, vehicles, every wireless signal carrying information, entertainment, connection across distances, every spark of the electrical age that defines modern existence. Tesla survived through his inventions, through the systems bearing his name, through every electron flowing through power lines, following principles he discovered in that Budapest park in 1882. The brutal betrayals couldn't kill what he gave humanity. His revolution didn't die with him in that lonely hotel room in 1943. It expanded, grew, conquered the planet, and continues revolutionizing human existence with each new application of electrical principles he revealed. Every time a light switches on, Tesla's vision succeeds. Every time a motor spins, his genius continues operating. Every time wireless communication connects distant humans, his dream advances incrementally. The man died poor alone, broken by betrayals that would have destroyed lesser spirits. But the revolution survived, thrived, and transformed everything about how humans live, work, communicate, and imagine possibility. That's the final triumph betrayal couldn't prevent. Tesla gave humanity tools to reshape civilization, and those tools proved too valuable, too fundamental, too superior to existing alternatives to be suppressed by the economic interests that betrayed their creator. The child of light, born during an electrical storm, illuminated the world so thoroughly that we can no longer imagine existence without the light he provided. His revolution powers everything, and it has only just begun.